Right, well, we'll make a start. So good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. 8th of December, a very cold, foggy, frosty morning here in West Midlands. I hope that you're well and healthy. It's a historic day with the first COVID-19 vaccine has been issued to a little old lady. So fingers crossed, this all is the start of the new 2021, and we can hope that we're all going to be healthy going forward. So fingers crossed. And I hope you've all opened your advent calendars and had your morning chocolate. Thank you, Drew, and morning to you as well. Nice to have you joining us. Thank you. Okay, right. So I will kick off with my introduction. So welcome to the festive virtual University of Birmingham Business Club. Thank you to all of our delegates and presenters for joining us today. A few housekeeping notes. We have muted all delegates for the duration of the event. If you have a question, please tap it into the Q&A box and we will get to them once each speaker has finished. If you have a technical issue, please raise your hand or put it in the chat box and we will try to endeavour to resolve this situation for you. But we are not responsible for your Wi-Fi, so hopefully that's all good. We are also recording this session and the slides and the session will be available after today's event. You can follow us on Twitter at UOB Business Club and also join our LinkedIn group where we'll be putting up messages and events and funding calls and all sorts of things that will hopefully be relevant. So without further ado, I will kick off with this morning's talks, which is on the subject of the rise of the digital startup during the pandemic. As you will probably have noticed, we've had quite a large kind of grasp of technology adoption over the last kind of 8 to 10 months. It's been a considerable rise in the amount of tech that we have adopted, but also the amount of digital startups that have been created as a result of the pandemic. And it's also seen historic levels of research that have come out of universities and other private institutions, and obviously organizations like Pfizer have really tried to bring the vaccine to the world in order that we can continue to not be locked down. So this is an interesting time, and obviously we can't keep that peak of research up. We can't keep that kind of peak of that acceleration has to kind of go off at some point. So we will have Henry Horwood from Bowhurst, who will talk about digital trends. Louise Butcher, who's a data scientist from Hartree Centre, who will talk about the availability of facilities that can help companies who are starting up in the digital world, but also to help companies who are looking to broaden their tech output. We have Yanis Maus, who is a founder of Birmingham Tech Week, talking about the event that we had in October, but also looking forward to what the challenges are facing digital businesses during this time. And then Derek Sear from the Demand Hub, which is one of the university's ERDF projects, talking about the funding that's available for SMEs within the West Midlands to support life sciences and digital startups. So without further ado, I will hand over to Henry from Bowhurst, who will introduce us and kick off this morning's presentation. Thank you. Over to you, Henry.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Kate. Yes, my name is Henry Warwood. I lead the research and consultancy team at Bowhurst, and I'm going to talk to you about two of our pieces of data that speak to the impact of the pandemic and the various lockdown restrictions on startups and scale-ups and the technology subset thereof as well. I'll speak to a bit, as Kate's alluded to. Ben, if I could quite grandly ask you for my next slide. I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about Bowhurst and what we do. For those of you who don't know us, we're an online platform tracking the UK's ambitious private companies. And Ben, if I could have the next slide. in order to track those companies, so we're looking at about 40,000 companies across the UK, ranging from startup to scale up. In order to identify those 40,000 businesses, we're looking for one or more companies, companies that have hit one or more of these triggers you can see on this slide here. We are, to take an example, equity investment, which is one of the ones that I will talk to you about in depth today. It's equity investment volumes are a good measure of confidence in the startup and scale up ecosystem generally. In terms of tracking companies, we will, if you started a business today and raised £10,000 from your friends and family to get it off the ground, we would start tracking your business at that point, all the way through to if you were then raising £200 million from US venture capitalists, we'd also track that transaction and that business. We also look at companies receiving venture debt. We look at any business attending an accelerator, any business receiving grants from Innovate UK, Horizon 2020, and devolved administration programs. We look at scale-ups. So these are companies where we can just see from their financials that they are substantively growing. Often they will have interacted with some of these other triggers. So many companies have multiple of these triggers, but some scale-ups don't. Some scale-ups are able to achieve their growth organically. We also track academic spin-outs, companies undergoing MBOs and MBIs as well. By tracked, I mean our research team creates manually, quite manually, a profile that creates and collates all of the data you would want on one of these businesses if you were, say, an investor or a professional advisor looking to understand a specific business or a group of businesses, which is, say, a sector. Ben, if I could have my next slide. So going into going into the lockdown, as we were starting to see the impact of COVID-19, we began an exercise to start looking at each of those businesses, not only in our usual ways, which was to understand their investment history, who was running the businesses, who owns the business, that kind of thing. We then did a specific exercise to look at the impact of the lockdown restrictions and the sort of wider economic environment of COVID-19 on those businesses, business models, to try and see whether they were adversely impacted, positively impacted, or anywhere in between. Ben, if I could have the next slide. So we, our analysts went through and looked at all of those 40,000 startups and scale-ups and applied as many of these tags on the left as were relevant. They were looking at the company's own websites, any news articles about the company's social media channels, to try and see whether any of these impact tags were applicable. And they were also inferring from the business model. You know, for example, one didn't need to see a tweet from a restaurant to know that that restaurant would be closed. In the first lockdown, this was fairly straightforward because across the UK, the restrictions were relatively similar. Since then, we've been having to apply more and more localized measures, or take into account more and more localized measures in the application of these impact tags, in trying to understand overall how businesses have been affected. The tags you got here on the left were then used to calculate sort of the nature of the impact on your business on the right here. To sort of explain how that might work, if we could see that you were creating job opportunities and were experiencing a surge in demand, but your supply chain was fine, or you had a digital product which meant you were able to meet that demand, you might actually be having a potentially positive time during COVID. But actually, in other circumstances, we might assume a certain demand for your product, but if you were experiencing increased lead times or had made staffing cuts, you might actually be having quite a bad time of it, despite the fact that you might have more customers than ever before. So it's that kind of calculation that we were taking into account. Ben, if I can have the next slide, please. So overall, it was quite a mixed picture. In the end, quite a large volume of potentially positively impacted firms. And when combined potentially positive and low, you can start to see that nearly 50% of the businesses that we were looking at here were doing all right during the pandemic. Now, okay, so part of the reason why I'm presenting this is a lot of those were digital startups and the companies that were able to deliver their product remotely and move quite easily to working remotely. When we look at the moderate and severe companies, that's when we start to see more scale-ups. So I guess the positive and the low were largely the startups, and the moderate and severe were the scale-ups, which I guess ultimately just is quite logical, that those companies with larger footprints had a larger task to adapt to remote working, and as part of that large footprint, or rather part of the reason for having that large footprint is probably they were either delivering something physical, or they had a reason for having such a large footprint as a company. Ben, if I go to the next slide. This is probably my favorite slide about how these impacts on how businesses were impacted and how that played out regionally. We also had, I have not got the slide, but we obviously had the analysis of which region was also worst affected. So here you can see the proportion of positively impacted companies by region. So London and Northern Ireland are darkest there. They had the largest proportion of positively impacted companies. And given what one knows anecdotally about which companies were likely to do all right during a pandemic, obvious ones are health tech, ed tech, experiencing a demand for a remote version of a typically physical service. The bias in London isn't going to be that surprising. If it's a digital startup and it tells you that it's in London, you won't be surprised. It was quite surprising to see Northern Ireland also having such a high proportion. That is in fact due to the cybersecurity hub out of Belfast. These are businesses that saw an increased demand across the UK, but there just is a higher proportion in Northern Ireland because as people move to remote working, particularly large businesses moved to remote working, there was increased demand for more sophisticated cybersecurity products for the distributed workforce. Interestingly, as I said, we do have the sort of negative version of this map as well. And in that, Northern Ireland also has the highest proportion of negatively impacted firms. There's no real sectoral trend underlying that. It is ultimately just looks to have been bad luck when we look at Northern Ireland in particular. But I guess with this, I want to show that there are these regional disparities in who had the larger population of sort of digital startups, certainly that were able to adapt and in some cases thrive during the pandemic. Ben, if I could have the next slide. So that was what I was looking at was the measure from our analyst exercise of looking at the COVID-19 impact. A measure that we've also always had access to is looking at equity investment volumes. So this is a signal of investor confidence in the UK startup and scale-up ecosystem. Ben, if I go to the next slide, please. So in order to try and understand what impact lockdown was having, we've been looking at the period since lockdown and comparing it with the same calendar period in 2019. Now, I've sort of provocatively put the 2020 numbers in this sort of red warning light, well, it's more magenta, but with this sort of warning light color. Whereas actually here on this slide, at least, these numbers aren't too bad. I mean, to just be 17% down on the amount invested in 2019, given everything that's happened, would be pretty good going. These numbers actually only include straight equity deals, so they don't include convertible loan note activity, which is the instrument that the Future Fund uses to invest in companies. So once you factor in the Future Fund activity into these numbers, we look to be at near enough the same levels as 2019, both in terms of amount invested and the number of deals. If you'd asked me in January, as indeed people did, I was predicting that in 2020, we would see significantly more invested than in 2019, but slightly fewer deals. Looks like, given everything that's happened, I'll be wrong on both of those counts. But having effectively a flat year is ultimately pretty good going with everything that's happened. However, Ben, if I could have the next slide. We do see some areas of difficulty, places that are struggling. And it's for startups who are raising for the first time. So in 2019, in the period 23rd of March to 1st of December, we saw 1.25 billion invested into 397 companies. In the same period in 2020, that amount has fallen by 52%, and the deal number by slightly less has fallen by 30%. So the amount number, although the bigger fall, is the one I'm worried less about. There are a lot of reasons why you might have raised less during this year. You know, if you were a startup starting out for the first time, raising for the first time, you might have not needed to rent an office space or spend your money on an office space in the same way you would have in 2019. So there are reasons why the capital requirements of your business might have changed. But nonetheless, there being 30% fewer businesses raising is a problem for the whole startup ecosystem. If that continues, there's no pipeline of businesses, and startups are risky. So it's very much a sort of funnel game. You know, the more we put in the top of the hopper, the more ultimately successful businesses there are in 10 years' time. So seeing a decline here is quite disappointing, and it's something we'll be keeping an eye on, and we regularly put to the government, because there's no sort of extra Future Fund activity in here. It's a requirement of the Future Fund that you've received at least one equity investment transaction prior to utilizing the Future Fund. So these companies are getting no succor from the government at the moment. Ben, if I can have the next slide. To focus in on the Midlands, and to be able to switch from that slide to telling a more positive story, the West and East Midlands combined have had a pretty good 2020. They have already well overtaken their 2019 investment numbers. So 180 million was invested into startups in the East and West Midlands in 2019. In 2020, it's nearly £500 million. Now, 200 million of that is from the very large and sort of outlier Gymshark transaction. However, obviously, you can all see that if you take 200 away from 496 million, it's still a significant increase on 2019. So things looking relatively positive in the Midlands in terms of equity investment. So there's an interesting bucking of the overall trend. And I just thought it was interesting here to look at the top sectors in the Midlands. FinTech and AI are top here, and that's reflected across the UK. For a number of years now, FinTech has been the sector driving investment across the UK. AI has started to catch up with it in recent years. They're not necessarily mutually exclusive either, but I thought this was particularly interesting because we rarely see robotics making it to number 3 as the top sector, but we do in the Midlands. Those of you on the ground might be more exposed to robotic startups in the Midlands than we are, so perhaps that makes more sense to you. But I just thought that was a nice sort of quirky top sector to end on. I think that is my last slide, isn't it, Ben?
Lovely, that's great. Thank you so much, Henry. It's interesting seeing the robotics picture as well, because that's an area of research that the University of Birmingham is heavily involved in. And I know there are other universities like Bristol and Bath and Sheffield, I believe, as well, that are heavily into the robotics research and engaging with businesses around this area. So that's really useful to see. I do have a question from one of our delegates, Ian Davey. How does the equity investment comparison in the UK 2019 to 2020 compare with trends in other countries, regions, so EU, USA?
That's a very good question. I don't have our own data to hand, sadly, because we're UK focused. I do know that overall the trend of it looking relatively positive is mirrored across Europe, at least. I haven't seen much of the latest US data, but in Europe you do get a similar story of high volumes. The ultimate reason for that is startups and scale-ups. If you invest in them as an asset class, you're thinking on a 10-year horizon. So I think most investors, once everyone can sort of started to see the light at the end of the tunnel, although we keep getting different estimates of how long that tunnel is, it is there, and it is ultimately a short-term issue. So if you were investing in a business this early stage, if you couldn't see it making it through to next year, then you basically weren't that pro the business anyway. Whereas what you should be excited about is what the business looks like in 5 to 10 years time, and it just tells you that all investors are thinking that in 5 to 10 years time we'll be well done with COVID.
Well, indeed. I've just got one more question quickly from David Meller. Hi, David. Has there been any changes in the source of equity investment, institutional, angel, crowd fund, etc.?
Yeah, there's a greater deal of institutional, actually. So a lot of the change in activity in my slides comparing 2019 to 2020 there, a lot of what was falling away was angels. This is completely natural. One, because they have the most discretion over their money. It is ultimately just their personal money that they are investing. And so they will have sort of reacted the most dynamically, if you like, to COVID-19, whereas VCs have to, it's their day job to invest the money. Alongside that, there's the sort of behind the scenes macro trends that more and more institutional money is going through VCs into this asset class as well. So the sort of the short-term pinch has been on angel funds, and the long-term trend is an increase in VC funds.
Lovely. No, that's great. Thank you very much, Henry. And thank you to the delegates for those 2 questions. Can I also just encourage people to sign up to the Bowhurst newsletters? They're really, really, really useful if you are looking at data trends and that kind of activity. So thank you very much, Henry. If you're able to stick around, we might have some more questions for you later.
Yeah,
now, thank you. And now if I can move over to, excuse me, Louise Butcher from the Hartree Centre, which is the Science and Technology Facilities Council. Louise, over to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So, yes, I'm a data scientist at the Hartree Centre, which is an institute of the Science and Technologies Facilities Council, which is in turn part of UKRI. For those of you who are not familiar with us, which I'm guessing is probably most of you, well, next slide then. We are based up in Daresbury near Warrington, And our mission is to accelerate the adoption of digital technologies by companies and other organisations. So we are looking to help businesses to use high performance computing, big data, AI technologies, and so on. And this picture here is Scafell Pike, our high performance computer, which is, let me get this right, the largest supercomputer in the UK, which is available for use by industry. So that is a facility that is available to SMEs and all sizes of company. Next, please. So the kind of things that we do, working very much with businesses, excuse me. We do modelling and simulation, and that may be from physical processes to things like chemical reactions. Optimising code where companies already have their own resources. So to help them to optimize that code, make it run faster, perhaps make it work on supercomputing hardware, data science and AI through collaborative programs. I'll say more about that in a moment. And I suppose bringing this all together, digital product design. So combining modeling with our visualization facilities, we can build digital twins of products. And in the bottom left picture here, you can see an example, which is our virtual wind tunnel, which has been very successful in helping to design cars and, you see here, motorbikes. Next, please. So in order to look at what data science is, perhaps it's useful to look at what skill sets data science requires. So on the one hand, we have maths and statistics, very much a sort of traditional skill, but very much a core of what data scientists need, because it's not enough to build models. You need to really understand the statistics behind it and the uncertainties and whether things are actually significant results. Computer science is the workhorse of what we do. We're working through coding. And putting those together, we've got machine learning, which is one of our workhorse technologies as well, training a model using data so it can understand what's important and even predict the future. But on its own, these really aren't enough in this day and age. We also need the other circle, which is business and domain expertise. And we can't possibly hope to be experts in every possible sector. So this is where we are very reliant on working with our commercial partners to understand their problems and their sector, and to be able to put that all together to produce genuinely useful data science solutions. Next, please. So once we've got this data, what sort of things can we do with it? Well, at one level, a company might be looking for a report, a one-off analysis of some piece of data, and we can do that. Another area which is important is maybe producing an automated pipeline so that we can help to automate a process, make something faster. And at another level, we can produce machine learning models, which can help predict things in the future. And I'll show you some examples of those in a moment. Next, please. So one example of someone we've worked with, Glow New Media are a small company who work in the healthcare sector, and they provide a platform for monitoring the safety and effectiveness of mobile workers. The problem they had was that their real-time tracking system was too sensitive to GPS noise, and that meant that the track jittered around, didn't give an accurate distance, and didn't allow checking in to various locations. So we worked with them to implement a filter for their GPS signal and a clustering algorithm to put points together, which helped to improve the accuracy of check-in, check-out of their staff when they reach the sites that they were going to. Next, please. So more on the sort of pipeline example then. This is a good case of doing some automation to add value. Roberts Vane Wilshaw are a firm of surveyors who advise companies on business rates. And to find potential customers, they combine different forms of data. So they're pulling together valuation office agency ratings and billing authority records, which are open data and so fairly consistent. But they're also adding in business ratepayer information, which they get from freedom of information requests. And this comes differently from each individual local authority, and so needs a bit of handcrafting to get into their database. What we were able to do was to produce some config files for them and an automated pipeline, so that then would automatically pull all of this data in every month and cope with format changes over time. And then that can extract and combine information, say, based on postcode. And we provided them with an automated way of doing this. And this in turn replaced a manual process, which took 8 graduates, 4 technical staff and 2 managers, with a much more reliable automated system, freeing up those staff to work on other projects. Next, please. Excuse me. So another company we worked with was a company called SatSafe, who were based on our own science park, and they provide telematics products for fleet vehicles, so typically a camera and sort of black box sensor type of idea. And they already had a working platform, and the idea was that based on the sensor data, this would recommend possible tips for safer driving and sort of monitor a driver's behaviour, with the idea that the sort of manager of the fleet could therefore demonstrate that they were taking into account the safety of their drivers. And we were able to help them to improve their metrics so that it better reflected driver competence in the real world. We did this by bringing in other data sources, so things such as weather data and speed limit data. And we're able to also help them with their modelling of sensor data to assess cornering. So this was quite useful, because actually this is very much about, the data needs to reflect the real world. And that's what we were able to work with them to do. Okay, next, please. Then, so not a small business, this is working with the NHS, but I think it's a good example of the kind of problems that we can help with. So Liverpool Clinical Commissioning Group are the body who oversee NHS care in the Liverpool City region. And the problem they've got is that patients often need quite complex care when they need hospital. And if that's not in place, then that patient will occupy a bed and can't be discharged safely. So what they asked us to do was to see if we could predict the care needs of patients much earlier on in their admissions process, perhaps when they're first admitted, in order to flag up what care they might need, so that could be put into place in advance. So we received data from them on various different areas, such as GP consultations and appointments and hospital admissions in particular, combined these into a patient profile, and then we were able to use machine learning to make a prediction of what care needs patients would have when they left hospital. Next, please. So the first thing we were able to do actually was to visualize the pathway of patients coming through the hospital system. And that in itself was very useful for them, because it was something that they hadn't seen before. So around 83% of patients leaving hospital don't need any additional referrals, and that's great, they can leave without any additional care. But around 17% do need some additional support, and some of those patients have quite complex care needs. Now, for purposes of visualization, I've got 3 different categories here: community, social and mental health. But actually, in the work we did, we had, I think, 16 or 17 different categories in total. And there were some quite complex cases in there. Okay, next, please. So once we built a predictive model, then we've got here the sort of predicted numbers on the left and the actual numbers on the right, and you can see where the inaccuracies are. The model actually comes out to be about 50% accurate. You have to be a bit careful to define this, because when you excuse me, you've got to, because only 17% of people need additional care, then you have to be careful. It doesn't say that nobody needs any additional care and declare itself totally accurate. So we can do that, and it doesn't matter if this isn't 100% accurate, because it's only a guide for clinicians. Next, please. I think that's everything. Thank you.
That's lovely. Thank you so much, Louise. And thank you very much for all those case studies. That's great to show the breadth of the work that we can do with Hartree, but also it's not just SMEs that can benefit from the work, the facilities there, the NHS, MOD as well. All of these larger organisations can benefit, but obviously primarily we want to get smaller businesses into using the facilities. Just quickly, you mentioned you design bespoke courses for teams. Where could interested businesses go, Louise?
I would recommend they contact us. I think we've got Simeon, my colleague, on the panel here. Maybe further on to Simeon.
Excellent.
Yes, we can provide my email details after today's webinar, but yeah, happy to take any inquiries. If companies do want to engage with us, first of all, we can operate on a commercial basis or a grant funded basis, and we are on the lookout for different funding calls to help businesses to start looking at a proof of concept, bringing that technology into their businesses. Absolutely. And what's really helpful is to start off the process as a clear challenge statement, where the company is, what they've done, and where they want to go. And that really frames the context of the challenge you're looking to address, in order for me to help put the right team together and arrange a meeting to follow up on that.
Lovely. That's great. Thank you. And we'll make sure that all these slides are circulated, so you've got Louise's details as well. That's great. Thank you so much, Louise. Really appreciate it. Right. And now if I can move over to Yanis from Birmingham Tech Week. Yanis, you've got 10, 12 minutes. I'll move over to you.
Thanks very much. I'm just about to
do the share.
Screen. So
excellent.
Hopefully you should all be able to see my screen now.
Lovely. Perfect. Thank you.
Wonderful. So as Kate mentioned, I'm Yanis. I'm the kind of CEO and founder of Birmingham Tech Week, and excited to announce also the CEO of the soon-to-be announced Birmingham Tech. So this is our kind of first public outing. And I'm going to be talking to you today about digital transformation and what we're seeing across not just the region, but the entire UK as well. What I'd like to do is, before we start, pose a bit of a question to you all, and that is, what are the digital transformation adoption challenges that some of you are facing? I'd love to kind of understand more about that after this webinar, both through Q&A, but also kind of questions offline as well. Also to mention that this will be available as an article with all the reference points and resources available as well, because there's quite a lot to cover. So we're going to be talking about digital transformation, technology adoption. Of course, innovation is happening at a faster rate than ever before, and this has been further accelerated by COVID. Now, while on the face of it, that may seem like a good thing, the speed in which transformation is happening and the pressure surrounding it are creating environments where failure is becoming more prevalent. So that is something we've got to be careful about. So we're going to explore some of those trends and discuss how we can adopt technology in the right way. So we'll look at some of those trends. The first one I want to look at is what I'm calling the need for speed. I think this is by far the most important trend, as all the other trends we're seeing were happening before the pandemic. But it's just that they become now more important and are better understood. But the speed in which you need to transform and adopt technology is moving at a faster rate than ever before in history, for quite obvious reasons, of course. And we can see that illustrated on this slide here by McKinsey and Co. We are seeing shifts in organizations using data, using insight, and adopting technology across lots of different areas of their business, and shifts happening from, sometimes on an annual basis to quarterly, but the big shifts are happening for organizations shifting their needs and focusing on different areas of tech and digital from a quarterly to monthly basis, and across all organizations they're assessing digital and tech from a COVID perspective on a weekly basis, and this is something we've not seen before across organizations, especially the ones and the members we're talking to around Birmingham Tech as well. So I just wanted to kind of highlight this quote because I thought it was quite a prevalent one, which is Elon Musk saying that technology isn't a static picture, it is more like a movie. And I think that's, it's so true right now. It's moving at an acceleration we've never seen before. But there is hope in kind of moving at that speed. I've kind of shown this graph here that most of you will know, crossing the chasm. Now, why am I showing this? Well, actually, there's a lot of insight and information we can take from the people who have gone before us. So, as I said, some of this technology and digital adoption has already been delivered by enterprise organizations and kind of mid-market organizations. It's now that the SMEs are kind of catching up with some of those tech companies. So there's a lot of different resources and content out there that we can learn from. So I think my kind of lesson here is to kind of hit the pause button. There is a temptation during a pandemic, and there still will be, way after the pandemic, to move really, really fast. And of course, moving fast is a good thing. It can, really benefit an organization. It can enable you to go to market faster. It can enable you to kind of drive revenue into the organization faster as well if you get it right. But of course, the flip side of that is if you get it wrong, it can cause a whole array of problems. So what's really important is to just understand the rationale behind why you are adopting that technology, why you're going through that digital transformation. And ask yourself the question, will it improve customer experience? Will it improve revenue? Will it reduce costs, increase profitability, or save time? Now, obviously, all of them, fantastic, great. One or two of them, equally good. But if you can't confidently answer those questions before you're going into some of these projects, then stop, hit the pause button and reassess, look at the research and look at some of the insight that's backing up those assumptions that you may be having. So the next one I want to look at is data, and of course we've kind of heard some great examples there of how data can be applied to an organization, and we're hearing this phrase more and more now: data is the new oil. And of course there is a lot of money in kind of the good utilization of data, and yeah, we're seeing data being created at an accelerated rate. 90% of all the world's data has been created, in a small, finite period of time compared to the rest of history, and that actually is a stat from a couple of years ago. God only knows what that's like now. So every day we're creating this mass of data that can be utilized if used in the right way, but I'll stress the can there. And of course, yeah, data is one big problem, and data is only good if you can extract the insight. And I think the message I want to get across here is there needs to be a shift from the buzzword around big data to one that focuses more on actionable insights, something that you can do and benefit your organization with. So if we look at kind of some of the stats here from a number of organizations, it can enable you to make those better strategic decisions, improve your processes, enhance customer insights and reduction in the time it takes to kind of, you know, operate your business. But it needs to be kind of, you know, utilized across your business processes and operations. And again, yeah, just stressing that kind of, you know, don't get seduced by the kind of big data buzzword. Make sure you're focusing on actionable insights. So understand what you want to do with your data first, and then once you know what you want to do with your data, work towards creating platforms and integrated systems that allow you to extract that actionable insight in the right way. So how do we kind of move towards actionable insight? Well, there's a couple of things you can do. One is acquiring good sources of data. I see a number of organizations that kind of acquire data for the sake of it, and sometimes in questionable terms as well. You know, make sure that you're actually creating value exchanges with your customers, so the data that's coming into your organization is something that actually can deliver that insight, and isn't just data for the sake of it. The other thing is to kind of democratize data across your organization, and this is something we're seeing a lot of organizations now do, especially actually over in Silicon Valley, making it more accessible, both internally for your employees, so employees can use it within their kind of internal projects and kind of, you know, create more innovation, but also externally as well, you know, creating more trust with customers by making that data transparent and telling customers what you're actually going to do with their insight and data. I think that, you know, GDPR has created more awareness, but actually kind of customers are still somewhat fearful of what organizations are doing with that data. So it's important to, you know, err on the side of caution and be transparent as possible, as well. And decide what you want to do with the data first. Make sure you've got that clear in your mind before you know, undertake a big kind of data project. And of course, we're living in the age of automation as well. So you know, if we are accelerating really fast and we're utilizing data in the right way, then that can lead to a level of automation across our businesses as well. So just looking at some of these ones, and we can look at these and kind of be fearful, but of course, like any stat, there is a kind of deeper story behind them. But PwC saying there that kind of 3% of all jobs will be replaced over the next kind of 10 years. Now, of course, that is you know, a worry. But I think it's not that those jobs won't be replaced at all. I think that there'll be an emergence of new jobs around digital skills. And that's something I know the combined authorities are doing a lot around as well. And then kind of the World Economic Forum there saying a reduction in full-time workforce, again, over the next kind of 10 years. It's about making sure that each of our organizations are investing in the right digital skills, upskilling our employees, getting new people into the business with those digital skills, and also kind of tapping into kind of retraining programs as well. And of course, yeah, this quote here, I love. You are either the one that creates the automation or you're the one getting automated. And that's someone who is, you know, probably one of the most well-respected tech people in the world, and a multi-billionaire. So yeah, hopefully one we can kind of buy into there. And I just wanted to make a kind of interesting point here as well. In a world of automation, what's really interesting is some of the jobs that are most resilient to being automated are the ones that are the lowest paid, and the ones actually that we're going to become more reliant on in the next kind of 10 to 15 years. You know, teachers who are going to be actually getting across those digital skills, healthcare workers, obviously kind of caring for an aging population, and the creative arts. You know, people, when we've got more time, are going to be entertaining us. So just an interesting kind of fact I thought I'd kind of put out there as well. So again, what can we do around the automated recovery? Well, obviously optimizing your business operations and getting them ready for automation is very important. I think the most important one here is to start small. Don't become fearful that kind of automation is these big projects. A lot of automation can be delivered around kind of smart logic and decision trees. So don't fear that actually it has to be kind of synonymous with machine learning or AI. Of course, that can be part of automation, but it doesn't have to be. So most organizations can adopt a level of automation and ask for help. There's a lot of help out there as well. So again, there kind of, automation doesn't equals artificial intelligence or machine learning. So don't be fearful around that, ask for help. So I just wanted to highlight quickly a few regional opportunities. So 5G has the ability kind of worldwide to generate $13.2 trillion. Now, something we should be really proud of in the West Midlands is we have the best 5G coverage of any region in the UK. So a big thanks to the team at West Midlands 5G there and their partners for the great work they're doing. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about a green-led recovery. And again, there's a lot of good work being done in the region by the West Midlands Innovation Alliance and their low carbon working group, Sustainability West Midlands, and a number of organisations, including GBS LEP. And there's some great organisations emerging in that sector within the West Midlands as well. EdTech, one that we heard about earlier, again, kind of massive impact there within the West Midlands. And we're seeing organisations like Flash Academy, Oxbridge, Smartella and Employ all doing some great stuff. FinTech, so this sector is delivering an estimated GVA of 411.7 million per annum to the West Midlands economy. And that was a report by David Miller, actually, the FinTech report in collaboration with GBS LEP. So that's an interesting one. And of course, that's being kind of driven by the new HSBC headquarters, the FinTech hub with Velocity Accelerator and a number of others as well. Health tech, that's another area I'm not going to go into. I'll skip over a few of these, but there's some ones to focus on, certainly. Smart cities, and then digital skills as well. Now, quickly, just to wrap up, the reasons to be optimistic. So we are seen as a growing tech hub, and one that's becoming more prominent. We've got a very diverse digital tech workforce, and we are seen to kind of be a tech hub for some of these bigger organizations, so that's great. But reasons for concern, we are seeing a slowdown in the investment coming into the region, and also a lack of scale-ups. So that is definitely a reason for concern, and a decline in investment as well within the West Midlands, especially considering some of the increases in investment going into some of our comparative regions as well. So that is definitely an area for concern. But fear not, help is at hand. So there's some great accelerators and business support programs in the region. And it's not just us that are kind of helping to connect the dots. There's also initiatives like the Grid and Innovation Alliance as well from the West Midlands, who are great resource hubs for some of this information and sharing as well. And of course, the University of Birmingham have got some great programs there. So there are 8 of them, which are well worth looking into to get help in a number of your initiatives. And I know Derek will kind of touch on a few of those. And finally, it's time to level up. We need to create more scale-ups. We need to kind of make sure that we're driving the digital economy across the region. And that's why I'm so pleased to announce our new hub, which is coming soon. So stay tuned and find out more about us by following us on Twitter and LinkedIn for some very soon to be revealed information and announcements. So thank you very much.
Exciting times for everybody. Thank you very much, Yanis. No, that's absolutely fantastic. And the Innovation West Midlands Innovation Alliance have also just put a link into their low carbon working group on the chat, so you can go and have a look at that. And also just to mention the 5G, the West Midlands 5G company recently had an Innovate UK funding call that closed, I think, last week. So I am hoping that that kind of call around 5G, around that kind of technology adoption will be available in the coming years as well. So that's really, really helpful. Thank you very much, Yanis. Yes, so I don't think we've got any, oh, hang on, sorry, any questions in the, no, okie dokie. So what we're going to do, we have got only a couple of minutes. Derek Sear has pre-recorded his presentation slides, and we won't have time for all of that now, but if Derek can just do a quick hello and an intro. You've got 2 minutes, Derek, my darling, sorry about that. But what we will do is we will make available his full presentation online, so you have got time to watch that at your leisure. Derek, if you wouldn't mind just doing a quick hello and introduction, that would be super. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kate. Yeah, nothing like future planning on the off chance that you might run out of time. So yeah, the slideshow is pre-recorded. So if you really want to indulge in some Demand Hub humour, then by all means dive in. But ultimately, Demand Hub is the university programme for essentially it's a rebirth of what was an MD Tech programme. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring digital into the landscape of what we're offering. So it's very much about utilising the data-centric themes that we've got through the use of something like Pioneer, etc., which is available to us, which is a UHB programme, and use that to help accelerate whether it's a product, a service, whether it's regulatory or even app-based medical device projects. So my name's Derek Sear. If you could just go to the last slide, Ben, I think you're in control of this. It'll just throw on my email address. By all means, get in contact with myself directly. And hopefully, if there's something there that you saw of interest, please drop that email across. But yeah, Kate, fill in for 2 minutes is a tough call. I am no BBC One presenter, as you can tell. So yeah,
No,
if I throw that back across to you.
Thank you. No, you've done a grand job, and sorry that we ran out of time to do the full presentation. Those of you who have attended the Business Club over the last year, over our webinars over the last year rather, Derek has talked before about the Demand Hub offer to business. So hopefully repeat viewers won't mind us skipping over that. But if you are new to the Business Club and you do want to know more information about the Demand Hub, please do go online and have a look at that information. Thank you, Derek. So just to wrap up then, thank you very much to all of our panelists. Thank you very much to all our delegates for joining us on this cold and foggy morning. Just to let you know that the slides will be circulated and then the recording will be made available on our website. We will email you to let you know when that's live. Don't forget to join the Business Club on LinkedIn and follow us on Twitter. And our next webinar will be scheduled for next year, so in the spring 2021. Other events to note, please be aware that there is a Birmingham Chamber event on the 10th of December. Yes, their quarterly business briefing, which would be very useful, I believe, to everyone to find out where we are towards the end of the year. And also Venture Fest is coming back, which is going to be great, and that's going to be a webinar on the 28th of January. And again, that's going to be really, really useful to find out updates from the West Midlands intermediaries, from West Midlands universities, from funding sources like Innovate UK and other areas as well. And also the Pitch Up competition, which is available for startup entrepreneurial people who are interested in pitching and hopefully receiving VC investment. So keep an eye out for that information that's available. So there we go. We welcome your feedback. Thank you very much. These events are as much for you as they are for us. And so we do value your feedback. Please do let us know if you're interested in a particular topic to hear about going forward. And we look forward to seeing you at the next event in 2021. So Merry Christmas, everyone, and see you in the new year. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Merry Christmas.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.